Welcome back to another episode of Fail Up, the podcast where we embrace adversity and turn failures into stepping stones and celebrate the journey to success. I'm your host, Adil Malik, and today we have an extraordinary guest who truly embodies the spirit of failing up. He's not just a close friend, but also a visionary entrepreneur dedicated to helping young adults navigate the often turbulent waters of emerging adulthood. Our guest today is the founder of Dably, a company that equips young adults with the tools and strategies that they need to tackle real world challenges with confidence. He's passionate about making this transition smoother and more successful for the next generation. Please join me in welcoming the brilliant mind behind Dably, Lucas Arfinengo. What's up, Luca?
Hello, Adele. Thank you so much for the intro. Feel honored.
Of course, brother. Glad to have you on. There's a lot of things that I want to discuss, but I want us to focus a lot on what you're currently working on. And I think it's amazing that you're working on this. The world really needs this. But before we jump into Dably, give the audience a little bit of background on who you are, a little bit of your journey, your upbringing, and a background, just so we can get to know you on a personal level.
Yeah, for sure. So, born in Brazil, in a small city known as São José dos Campos, and I moved to the U.S. And then kind of spent. I was doing 6 months in Brazil, 6 months in the U.S. till high school, and interesting time kind of navigating two cultures. Being how to best fit into one's culture versus the other, and having to do that identity switch so often. But was able to grow up in the suburbs of New Jersey in the teenage years. Was able to then attend Tennessee. And then was able to get a job with Johnson Johnson and kind of led the corporate route. And it's been an interesting journey so far. A lot of mistakes have been made, a lot of new learnings, and a lot of bubbles being burst as I kind of moved from one place to another, and, especially to California, where you see a lot of different things.
Yeah, completely different, three different worlds to be in South America, and then East Coast is nothing like the West Coast, and West Coast is a world of its own. So, what would you say? What was the toughest part of the transition from Brazil to coming to the U.S.?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is just not having your family. Often we do take our family for granted, because they're so close, and something that I never had. So every time that we had the chance to go back to Brazil, it is huge celebration of an event. And I really love that. In trying to find the silver lining, where because we didn't have the opportunity to see our family members, our grandparents, our cousins so often, the chance that we did get, everyone put aside their BS drama and just came to celebrate being next to one another. I think not having that structure, that dynamic with me, especially in the U.S., where it was just my core family of my parents and my sister, it was challenging, especially during Thanksgiving and some American holidays where people were with their family. But that really kind of put more of an emphasis on and really helped shape some of my ideals around and really putting the importance on being present with your loved ones.
Yeah, I would say distance for sure makes the heart grow fonder. Not as dramatic as Brazil, but for us, we had a lot. My mom's side of the family, everyone lived in New York. So we're the cousins that were just in Pennsylvania, and we didn't see them as often as everybody that lived in New York, which made it more of an event whenever we came to visit. And I can definitely relate. You appreciate the time more because it's so limited. And something else I just want to note, Lucas is, one of my closest friends. And one of the things that I look for, I guess, in friendships, or I've noticed a pattern of people that I'm very close to, are not just loyal, but reliable people, good friends, keep their word, and they're just always there for me. And I feel like I can be very vulnerable and trust, and there's a lot of trust there. Generally, you're very family oriented. So outside of just a friendship, you're pretty close to your family. You have a lot of love for your family. You appreciate, and you have very strong values around the idea of family. So that's something that shows not just with your Brazilian family, but also with all of your friendships and all the relationships you have. So I think that's a really important quality and trait that you have, Luca.
100%. I think that, friends, there was a saying, like friends are the family you choose. and it's something where the values should, transfer over. And so many times you see people kind of, especially in LA, and LA is known for having flaky people. And it's really not that difficult to just show up to your friends, to put in a little bit of effort to, treat them how you want to be treated. And a lot of people just forget that. A lot of people are in their own minds and don't recognize that, by you bringing value to someone else's life, that value will come back to you. Um, and I think that's just something super important that a lot of people miss.
Your family's your family. You're bonded by blood, but if friendships, you have to kind of, I don't want to say prove, but you have to invest a little bit more to show how much you care, right?
Mhm.
You can't just talk with your mouth. You have to walk the walk as well. So yeah, 100%. And obviously, we have you went to Penn State University, and tell us a little bit about your college life and specifically the transition from college into the real world, starting your first job and moving out to Los Angeles, and what that experience was like, the transition from there to adulthood and getting a job, your first job, and eventually moving out to California.
Yeah, I think I had a very typical experience in the sense that I felt very lost and was also having a lot of fun at the same time. I think one of the beautiful parts of the US and especially American universities is that there's so many options for you to, go into. There's so many clubs, so many things to join. But I think that, you know, the multitude of options can really create this analysis paralysis. And at least for me, looking back on it, I don't think I really did with a lot of intention. I made my core groups of friends early on and kind of did what a lot of them were doing, did what my parents recommended me to in terms of my study major. And I followed what was a familiar path in terms of going to like the corporate route in operations, which is what my father had done. And so it was a really great learning period. There's so much knowledge that you just take in on like how to interact with people. I think that's one of the big benefits of college as a whole. It's this huge social experiment that you just take in so much. But I think one of the downfalls is you don't really act with a lot of intentionality. We do what's easy because our monkey mind is like, I want to have fun, and this is a whole new world for me to really do that. And then we forget about the big picture. Going into the real world after graduating, I think it kind of really bites you in the ass, where you're now faced with having to make a multitude of new decisions around your finances, your health, and you have no idea what to do, what companies to go with. And granted, I think that's a big fault on the school system as a whole and not teaching us financial and health literacy, but also, us not necessarily having exactly the right goals in mind, really seeing what is it that we want to do, what is it that we want to be like outside of what we've grown up with. So it was very challenging, made a lot of stupid mistakes. And like, granted, everyone makes mistakes to the point of this, your thesis of failing upwards. It's we're always going to make mistakes, but there are some very basic ones that, at least my thesis is, we can avoid if given some basic education around it and was thinking about it for a little bit on what intention you want to bring towards your life.
Yeah, and I mean, you triggered a lot of different thoughts, and one of the things that I'll say is, I think it's absolutely insanity where in school a lot of people don't take school seriously. Maybe some people do with honors, and they have AP classes, whatever it is in high school. But for the most part, I think the general US population, young people under 18, they're not taking life too seriously. Um, and what happens is the fact that at 18 is just supposed to be a transition where all of a sudden you become this serious adult without really any life experience or much guidance on how the real world works, and to prepare for yourself and then know what you want to do for the rest of your life, I think is a big ask, when it can't just go from level 1 to level 15. And college is supposed to be, I guess, the smoother transition. But what all the points you touched on, we're not equipped with the practical skills. Yes, we maybe learn how to learn better, we learn how to memorize things, we learn how to do some formulas, but how much is it equipping us for the rest of our lives? I don't know. And I think I wish school was more oriented towards um, discovering ourselves and our strengths, abilities, and gifts, and also almost promoting that once college ends, the learning is not over. So even if it's not going to teach us how to do all those little things that we need to know in the real world, at least equipping us with the ability to figure it out quickly and become very resourceful and have this mindset of like, hey, it's not over yet. Your journey's not over yet. It's not like you're working a job for the next 30 years. You might not like the first 3, 4 jobs that you have. And it's about skills and building yourself up over the next decade to really figure out what you want to do for the rest of your life in your 30s. I mean, look at both of us.
Mm-hmm.
I was in academia, was thinking I was going to go into the science route and something in the medical or dental field, and completely shifted gears, and pursued entrepreneurship. Much like yourself, you were in supply chain and you had a background that was very corporate, and the startup world is nothing, right? Anything that it takes to be successful in the corporate world will make you a massive failure in the startup world, right? And things are kind of laid out for you. There's a lot of structure. Meanwhile, in the startup world and entrepreneurship, you have to create structure. So it's insane how, again, I think the philosophy is just all screwed up, and
Yeah.
it's a systematic problem.
Yeah. And to that point, and I'm speaking here with some background, being a teacher, but as you know, she left her law practice in Brazil and followed her passions. So what I'm about to say is validated through a teacher's eyes. The system was structured not to launch lives. The system was structured, the school system was structured to launch careers. So, not to put our tinfoil hats on, but J.D. Rockefeller, back in the day, put in massive amounts of money to lobby the educational system to really structure the way that we teach students, or the way we teach that next generation, to go into a job, but not to go in to navigate our societal systems. And that's what you were touching on. It is a huge systemic problem. Financial literacy is just not taught right now. Luckily, there's been a lot of new laws passed this year that are putting more financial literacy programs in high schools. But it was something along the lines of like 8 U.S. states have standalone personal finance courses. That's just absurd. These are the most fundamental concepts that we need to know to navigate our society. And it's very frustrating that, although school does a good job of launching careers, does a poor job at launching lives. And that's, been my big impetus on kind of initiating what I'm doing now with Davily. And it's something where it just blows my mind that just the most basic amounts of information on what will help you navigate these really complex decisions, to your point that we have to make right out the gate. We're having to go from level 1 to level 100 right away with no training, which is just absurd. It's absolutely absurd, and it's irresponsible.
And it's like the challenges that you end up facing. It's like you have to make every mistake until you get it right, unless you have the privilege of a parent or someone that's very closely guiding you, which most people don't have the luxury of. Or
Yeah,
even if you have somebody guiding you, they have their entire own life. They can't guide you through every single decision. So, and it's not that you're not capable of making a decision, you just don't know what the right decision is. And
yeah.
it's not
You
like
don't
one
know, we
size
don't know.
fits all. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's insane. Tell us about your challenges. I think right after, because I remember we used to discuss this all the time in California.
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit about your challenges with just the basics, right? Not finances, of course, but health insurance. Investing. I guess investing
Yeah.
is even broader, but just the basics of like car insurance
Yeah.
and how to pick.
No, I mean, coming right out the gate, you have to, you know, find an apartment, right? Actually, before that, even, you have to set up a bank account. When I came out of school, like, I didn't even know what the process was for setting up a bank account. And like going into the bank, like I knew I had to set something up, but it was just such a foreign experience. And I think the worst part of everything is just this feeling of vulnerability. I feel like a lot of people have maybe gone to like the car mechanic and just not known what the hell is going on. And it's that feeling of vulnerability that you could be taken advantage of and not know. It's that feeling of lack of confidence that really drives me right now in doing what I'm doing, in helping kind of bring people some of that comfort that the choices they're making will lead to that better life. And, coming back to my experience from just not knowing how to set up a bank account, not knowing how to, get in a place to live, what the renting process is like, how that would get structured, having a lease be thrown in your face and just not knowing what to look for, whether you're in budget, out of budget. The biggest thing though, and to your point of just like these little mistakes that we have to make have such consequential ramifications where I didn't know what a credit score was. Given all my schooling, my supportive parents, my mom was telling me that she had told me what it was, but I
Bro,
guess back in the
I
day,
didn't
it
have
just goes
credit.
right.
I didn't have credit till age 24. Just putting that out there. And I was like,
Yeah,
I'm gonna make sure and of course I'm first generation. My parents aren't from here. I made sure my baby sister started building credit at like 14. I was like,
yeah. Thank God.
this is gonna affect the quality of your life. You don't want to call mom and dad up when you're like working and you're earning an income and you're like, oh, can you co-sign this for me? Because and then it's not just that. It's not just about building credit. You have to like go out and spend like months, or you don't end up spending months. No, it's not like the credit card companies are like, this is how to get a good credit score. They just approve you however possible. They see, okay, whatever. And then you start making mistakes. And then it's like, you're rather than climbing up the mountain, you end up getting boulders and rocks thrown at you a little bit till you fall. And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's not
Yeah,
that was I didn't know that. But the real world does not care that you didn't know something or you weren't aware
it
of
does
something.
not
You
care.
still get penalized and you still suffer the consequences. And it takes much longer to rebuild credit than to just get it right the first time. And it
Yeah,
has unbelievable effects negatively, from
yeah,
renting an apartment to buying a car to doing basically anything.
yeah. And to your listeners too, for those that aren't too familiar, the emerging adults here, a credit score is what banks and so many different types of companies um, essentially see what your trustworthiness is on you being able to handle large assets and purchases. So if you want to get a car, if you don't have a long credit history or a good credit score, they will charge you up the ass and you will have to be paying thousands and tens of thousands of dollars more than if someone had a good credit score. If you can get rejected from places to live, so you find a good apartment, you have a good job, a good salary to pay for it, they will reject you if you don't have a good credit score. And it's something where it's like the craziest element for me was I missed two credit card payments, and that dropped my score dramatically. Dropped my score 200 points, and from that alone, I ended up having to pay thousands of dollars more on car payments, and it just got rejected from different places to that I wanted to live, even though I had the salary for it. And it's just this element of like not being set up, which is just so irresponsible on our society.
Especially for the institutions and the people responsible for preparing us for the real world. And I think the easiest way to think of credit score is it is quite literally your financial report card in the real world. And
Yeah.
if you have one B plus or B minus, however you want to look at it, if you have a D, you're definitely screwed. But if you and not just screwed in terms of you can't get something you want, you pay, like you said, tens of thousands of dollars of money that is basically going to waste. Um,
Mhm.
and you can't do anything about it. And if you effectively use it and don't make those mistakes and make sure you have an A plus on everything, not just are terms favorable, you're able to leverage wealth much faster, more effectively, without the headache, without the stress, and get to maybe your financial goals and your lifestyle goals much faster. Right. So it's a
Yes.
tool that, if not used properly, it ends up harming you. And I think that's a lot of the things that, in general in life, in the real world, that I've learned in the last decade is there are a lot of things that, if you're not educated on it and you're not using these resources effectively, they harm you, like really
Yeah.
harm you. And if you can use it, there's not really an in between, right, about getting by. But if you use it effectively, you can cut 5-6 years off your life, not just in terms of headache, but just like in terms of getting ahead, becoming a homeowner.
Yeah. And that's been, my big thesis around if we can provide some basic level of education on how to navigate our societal systems and what tools to use, we can accelerate people's lives so much faster. Imagine the value that more people will be able to bring to our society, to their own personal lives, if they just knew how to go about this. The most game-changing kind of analogy that someone made that helped me just see the world in a different way is to think of life as a video game. There are certain ways to navigate these different maps and these different systems that we have to go through. And you can try going at it a certain way without kind of reading the objective or some of the rules of how to use a controller. And you will see that it will take you significantly longer to reach that milestone, right? To reach that, to completing the game or completing some goals within the game. Whereas someone who's been given, that rule book, who's been given some of the cheat codes on what to do and how to go about things, they're able to navigate things so much faster. They're able to enjoy more of the game. And I think that's the big element. It's not about just getting ahead. It's about being able to enjoy your life and doing the things that you want to do rather than being stuck in the sand trap of, lack of knowledge on how to go about navigating your life.
And it becomes overwhelming. Almost becomes like a negative cycle and a loop. And when people feel really overwhelmed, they can't, and not just overwhelmed in terms of like the burden of of debt and this and that, and not knowing what choices to make. It's also the burden and the overwhelming. I mean, like there aren't even clear answers sometimes online. There's analysis paralysis. There's too much information right now in this information age
Yes.
and the digital age. There's too many gurus, and then you don't know people's agenda. They're trying to sell you something. No one's doing it for the good of society. It seems that everyone's just trying to sell something to you that could benefit you in one little aspect. But there's no like all-in-one robust place where I'm like, this is a trusted, credible source where they're going to guide me with what I want, not what they want me to do, but what is
Yeah.
actually good for me in my situation. So, um, Lucas and I in California, we used to have these conversations all the time. We'd have nice walks on the beach and we would just talk. We'd go on hikes and we'd really dive into this and we'd share our struggles with each other. And I remember, just one day it really started, light bulb went off where you were like, I need to do something about this. And I want to create a real idea. I want to create a solution to this problem. And that's kind of how Dabbly came into life. And now here you are, fast forward. But before we get into that, I want to discuss, you know, tell us about, of course, now we know the reason why you started this journey with Dabbly, but tell us what your vision is for Dabbly. What do you see Dabbly being effective in doing? Is it just going to be finances, or what's the overall vision and philosophy for Dabbly?
Yeah. So my ultimate vision is to be the guide for life's transitional moments. So as we see when, there are different phases that we move into from this emerging adulthood into the real world. And then when we're more established, we're looking to buy a home and then looking to have a baby. And when I take a look at a human's lifespan, there are all these different transitional moments where they need some basic education and guidance on what tools to utilize. So my vision is to really be that guy, to just help simplify what is they need to know, what is it they need to do, and then point people in the right direction to trusted resources that can take them to that next step. And by doing that, by facilitating that first step, we can really bring value not just to people's lives, but to the companies that are coming about and have really cool solutions that can benefit, the greater society. But a lot of people just don't know how to utilize them.
Understood. And how exactly are you guys going about it? What is the process? And for people that are really seeking this out, I'm sure people listening to this, they're gonna. And to be honest, it's not just yes, emerging adulthood. Of course, they suffer from this the most. But I think even entering my 30s, right? I'm starting to think about.
Mm-hmm.
I'm married. I'm starting to think about, fatherhood, buying a home, and just the basics, right? And okay, what happens in case this happens to me? And I never even looked into a life insurance policy, but now I'm like, okay. And I realize it's so simple once I found somebody that I trust. And I'm like, I could have just started this 6 years ago and already been at a certain level, right? So again, it comes back to the same point, and everyone can benefit from this. It's not just people in their 20s, but
Yeah.
what is the Dabbly process? Is it an app? What is the platform?
Yeah, so we've had very interesting journey. So we started, really back in fall of 23 with a different company that was more of a learning management software. So we went through a one credit course at Kent State University where we essentially created a animated sitcom. As an immigrant, I've learned, how to navigate different social situations. A lot of immigrants learn how to navigate different social situations through sitcoms. And so I wanted to kind of take that concept and bring it to financial and health literacy. And that went super well. And what we found was that we wanted to really reward the education, reward people for doing what they need to do to set themselves up for a life success. And we were bringing in all these different companies like Planet Fitness, Kellogg's. We them essentially offer their products and services to our students as a reward for completing a certain learning modules.
You're almost like game. It's like gamification basically for something that's beneficial for them anyway.
Yes. And gamification with tangible rewards. Because a lot of times when you see gamification on Duolingo, it's cool. You get, badges and you get, hit a couple streaks, which triggers the dopamine in our brains. But I feel like this next generation is a little impatient, a little too smart for just, doing something for the sake of a streak. So we really want to reward people with actual products and services, and life-saving abilities. What we realized is we saw like over 90% conversion rate from users to the partners that we were bringing to our platform, and that really triggered this restructuring where we leaned away from the traditional kind of cohort style and decided to create this web application to all of the broader college students at the campus. So we've redesigned the platform to be this self-guided learning experience where you watch a couple videos on some topics that we have laid out. You can think of Coursera if you've ever gone through it. You have a couple different modules. But the thing is, we try to close the education to action gap, and I can go into that. But the big key that we want to do is after you learn something, you have a specific action, a specific task, and a specific resource for you to then turn that education into tangible action in your life. So you go through our credit score module, you learn what a credit score is. We then give you the task to check your credit score with Credit Karma, right? Because one of the things that we realize is a lot of people just don't apply what they're learning, which makes learning kind of pointless. And after they kind of go through these tasks, as they gain this command center really of what is it that they have to do and what companies are using, they're getting rewarded in points, which they can then redeem and rewards in our marketplace. So we have partnered up with so many different companies now that are offering their products either for free or for a heavy discount. And cool to watch. Actually, I just closed a deal the other day with this company, Pure Patch, which I really love. They essentially have these caffeine pouches that do the slow release of caffeine, and they've expanded their product line into these sleep pouches. And it's just so awesome to see, the ability to give these companies that are creating a great value to students a more direct channel to reaching their ideal users, and for users to really, get rewarded for learning how to adult.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's crazy because you're solving a multitude of problems, and everyone that's kind of in this environment gets value. And I think on a kind of on a bigger scale, I'm sure you know this, Lucas, but you're helping society, right? Like, how does society benefit if all these adults come into the real world confident, self-aware, know how to solve problems, take actionable steps, right? The other thing is, if we're just sitting there learning about credit, life insurance all at once, we don't even know where to start and how to take action, how to implement it, like you said. But if everyone is organized, structured, what does that do to our economy, right? Like what,
Yes.
on a grand scale, what does that do when we have people that are problem solvers, and they're like, well, you know what, I did this in my personal life, what else can I do in my professional or in other areas of my life, or how can I benefit other people from this? And now you created almost wildfire in a very massive positive way, and now that same individual that now goes and works for a company, because they have their life in order and personal life in order, they have more to contribute in that organization, right? So everywhere
Yes.
you go, the contribution just continues to escalate and escalate and escalate. And it's
Yes.
such a small shift, right? Such a small, when you come down to it, the core is it's a very small shift. Um, but it just hasn't been done by anybody.
No,
It's
it,
profound change.
yeah. And to that point, you asked me about my vision. And to put it very simply, my vision is to be known as the great catalyst. We want to provide people with a foundation to build their lives. We're not going to go in and solve every little problem that, you have in your life. We're not going to be able to give you that personalized roadmap to the most minute detail, at least for now. AI
Yep.
is changing things a little bit right now. But
Yep.
if we can really create a foundation for people to build their lives, oh my God, where will we see our society, in a couple
Yeah. Well,
years?
I would even say AI is something I'm sure is going to be a huge tool that you guys are going to implement that's just going to
Yep.
further accelerate your vision, right? So I think AI is going to be a massive tool in helping you personalize for each individual whatever their lifestyle goals are, whatever it is, and it'll probably put a plan together. But yeah, it's going to have it's and like you said, catalyst. And I think that's something amazing, because when we had these conversations in the past, we realized not just does it not exist, anything that's even remotely close is like there's life coaches or people, but has more to do with mindset. It has more to do with like being motivated, but it doesn't actually fix the root problem, right? Which is just the
Yes.
practical issues of like, well, okay, that's fine, I'm motivated to change this about myself, and I know I'm down in the dumps. But then they get demotivated because the moment they go back online and figure out how to fix this one little issue, or what's the best investment vehicle, or what's the best vehicle for this problem that I have, they're just bombarded with ads and people pitching them on something else. So it doesn't. And then in the process of people that are really eager to do that, they might spend the very little they have on the wrong solution, so they get further discouraged. So
Yes.
it's
It's
amazing, and I
tough.
think it's an amazing vision. Yeah,
Yeah.
bro,
No.
it's a
And
struggle.
and to that point, one of the big things that we see, especially with it in the age of AI, there are so many more companies coming up. And one of the big things that you mentioned is this feeling of being overwhelmed. And what our big thesis on that is we want to close this education to action gap. I don't care if your feed is strictly about financial literacy or health literacy and what you need to do to improve your life. If you're not taking action on it, it does not matter. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions that we see is so many people are scrolling through Reels, TikTok, and like they think that they're learning all these cool things. But if you ask them to regurgitate what they learned yesterday, point blank, I mean, you can't really come up with anything. And that's one of the big issues is people have this illusion that they're taking action and moving their lives forward, when in reality they're just consuming information and just sitting in the same place. And so that's what we really want to help triggers. Let's help you take the first step. Let's help you see what it is that you're really doing, live with some more intentionality rather than living in this state of delusion that you're improving your life by consuming these Ask Hormozy videos, when in reality you're in the same place.
Yeah, and ideas and knowledge are yes, they have value, but they're worth nothing if you never apply the action of what you've learned. And to be honest, to be fair to Alex Hormozy, he even says this, right? Like, unless
Mm-hmm.
you apply action to any of the principles, it means nothing.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's about consistency and action in regards to every area of your life: personal,
Yep.
professional, relationships, finances, and beyond. So, you know, one of the reasons why Dabbly is also very important to me is, of course, this podcast itself, Fail Up. I dealt with a lot of struggles myself. I feel like most people in their 20s have. It's a learning curve. You're learning through, you're experiencing things for the first time. You don't know what the best action is to take. And Dabbly is very congruent, aligned with what I'm trying to do here with Fail Up, right? Essentially, you're trying to make sure people don't fail downwards and fall flat on their face. You're trying to make sure that they learn, and hopefully they fix that gap, and there's very little failure towards whatever their ideal lifestyle or goals or visions are. So I think it's amazing, and I'm really looking forward to the growth of this. What's coming up for Dabbly in the coming months and entering 2025? Where do you kind of see the direction of this?
Yeah, so we're in a very exciting, nerve-wracking time right now. So we are launching at Kent State University this semester with our beta, and it's been super exciting. We're seeing all the demand that we have on the wait list and all the demand of different companies that want to partner with us, and just seeing this, slow but big change in kind of our vision. And we're going to be, launching not only at Kent State, but have a couple other schools in the pipeline for the spring semester, and hopefully be able to bring about the solution to as many people as soon as possible. But we're really focusing on ensuring that we have, the right playbook, the right setup, and we'll be initiating our pre-seed raise in the coming weeks. So that's going to be a fun process too. And I think it's one of the funny things, like, being an entrepreneur, it's not all glam and glamour. It is the craziest, lifestyle. It's a friend of mine put it in a really great way. It's the most psychotic fun we can have, because it is just, your days are just riddled with anxiety. You wake up thinking about what you have to do. You go to bed thinking about what you're going to do. So, for people that want to start a business, I think there's no better time, but really think twice if you want the lifestyle. I think it's something where unless there's a very clear go-to-market strategy, or you're extremely passionate about what it is that you want to do, have that confidence that you're going to be super persistent, because or else it's going to be a treacherous time.
100%. I want to touch on entrepreneurship a little bit too, and I'll say, piggyback off you with a couple of things. I think a lot of, and I hear on other entrepreneurs, I'm about 3 years into this with the solar business, and I'll say that if I knew what I knew now about how hard it was, I think I would have probably not been as excited about pursuing this. And I think that's one of the things about entrepreneurship is like you have no idea what you're getting yourself into until you're into it. And then you're in too deep. You either give up then or you just keep going. And the other thing about what you said about the why, not everybody's going to have the same why as Lucas, which is a very profound why, which is I want to help society and benefit society. Sometimes the why might be something more personal. It might be something just in regards to, I want more personal freedom or location freedom. Even if that's your why, just be sure that you really want that, because the challenges and hurdles that you're going to encounter, the adversity you're going to encounter, and the times the self doubt creeps up, the insecurities come, you have to really fight through that. There are going to be a lot of mental blocks, and there's an immense growth if you can push through. And it sounds generic, but you really can't give up. Again, I'm only 3 years in, right? So I still have a lot of learning to do. But the last 3 years, I feel like in a way have aged me a lot and have given me a lot of wisdom. But it's been tough. There's times, I mean, even right now, to be honest with the audience here, business, I'm going through a lot of challenges that I've never faced before. But the difference is, it's funny because the problems I dealt with my first year now are like this. And if I had to deal with the problems I'm dealing with now, I would, bro, I'd be digging my own grave. I'd be like, it's over. I'm out. I don't want any part of this. But now I'm like, well, it's going to show up again and again. It's going to be bigger problems. The difference is you really do become a different person, an individual through all those challenges that you're better able to tackle it. It's not the problems go away. You just become a person that's more stronger
More
and more
capable.
courageous to be able to, more capable to be able to handle the problems. Right. So
Yeah.
that's definitely a big part of it. Share with us some of the challenges in entrepreneurship that you've dealt with so far. Obviously, as this grows to become something bigger, you're going to have more, but just some of the challenges in just putting this idea together, finding the right
Yeah.
team.
I mean, I think the biggest challenge, I came from an operations background and I transitioned into tech. The biggest thing that I see now, the challenge that myself and other people is, this outsider effect where we feel uh, we feel like we don't belong. We feel like that we're not, um, uh, supposed to be in the space, that other people have all these different advantages. And it's something where we have to be a little delusional in our capabilities to kind of put these intrusive thoughts aside. And I think the biggest element that's helped me with that feeling good enough to be in the space that I am is just this genuine immense curiosity to, like, never been the biggest financial guy. Having this immense desire to understand how to do these financial models, this desire to understand how branding and marketing works. And it's that curiosity that can essentially lead you to the next step. So that's a huge one. And then the other element is just finding the right team. Longer than I expected because of the challenge of finding someone technical. It took a while for me to find and sell a software engineer to come work for us for Sweat Equity. And one of the things I think can really help facilitate that journey for a lot of people that further struggling with that dynamic is try temporary solutions. See if you can pay someone a little bit of money to come on board as a manager while you outsource the core work to a team in India, for example, which is what we did. We brought on our CTO now because we brought them on as a product manager, basically, to oversee the development with our outsourced team. He loved our vision and what we're doing so much that he was, full on to come on board, and we were able to get that experience of knowing how to work together in the best way. And then, lastly, the big thing is also just understanding how your relationships are at play. One of the things I think is a huge challenge is, your focus is so much on the business and making sure that things can be a reality. And I realized that took away from my previous relationships with friends and with my current fiance. Luckily, with my fiance, she's someone who's courageous enough to voice to me how she's feeling and, be able to tell me, what she needs from me. And I'm courageous enough to be able to receive that and really take action on it. I think that's one of the other elements of not letting these different areas of your life falter because you have this vision to make your company a reality. There's going to be give and take. Nothing will ever be balanced ever, but it's more about making sure that things don't fall through. I think those are kind of the big three: establishing strong relationships, making sure that you can get over this outsider effect, and really just making sure that you have the right team with you.
Yeah, and I would say on the balance aspect, because I think that's important in entrepreneurship, there's not balance. There never will be balance, not true balance. You almost find a way to integrate the different areas of your life. I think your fiance should know about what's happening with business, and business should understand that your fiance is pretty important. And you find a way to more seamlessly integrate everything. So the expectations, so they don't feel left in the dark, right? One way or another, or they're not a priority. So I think that's a challenge. And I don't think in life you ever 100%, maybe when you're old and you retire, okay, but at the end of the day, we all strive for it and we do the best we can. And sometimes one thing becomes, if you're working on a big project with work, it might take up a little bit more time, and family, you might not be able to give them as much time. But when things are a little bit slower, don't jump back in and try to force more projects on your plate. Take that as a sign of, like, you know what, it's maybe a slower season with business. Let me prioritize family and my fiance, my wife, and my parents, or whatever it is, and just know, let your intuition kind of guide that a little bit, and your decision making in regards to that. But 100%.
Yeah.
um,
And one quick thing to the to the listeners that maybe don't have a specific idea that they want to execute on right now, but I think so. I learned of the equation for how to be most useful recently, which I absolutely love. I want to share with you. It's essentially understanding your utility delta, which is what idea that you have, what value will that bring minus what's currently out there, times the number of people it will impact. And I think that's one of the big things that essentially is a big misconception of people need to think about how to be more useful to society rather than trying to make a quick buck. And with that, this utility delta of the value that you bring minus the what's currently out there, if that number is really big, if the value that you bring is immense and it only helps out small number of people, you're still getting, a big number overall in the general equation. And vice versa, if you bring little value, but it impacts a substantial number of people, again, that number still checks out to be a really big game changer. So I think that's one of the big things that um, really kind of put things in perspective for me is like, what we're doing, we're providing these incremental changes into people's lives. But we're doing it on such a mass scale that we are really able to be useful to the greater society. And that's just something that has been kind of resonating in my head for so long of, how is it that we can be useful? And just following that, I think people really be able to see what their passions, their interests intersect, and you'll find a niche for them.
100%, and it's so important what you said, because sometimes we think we have a great idea, but if we're not really helping anybody with it, it has no value, right? The marketplace doesn't care. They don't care how amazing it is for you, but if it doesn't, again, if it doesn't help them in some way, shape, or form, it doesn't have any value. The other thing is, I remember one time, I think it was Mark Cuban. I don't know the exact quote, but he basically said, if you figure out a way to save people time or money, you have an idea, right? Compared to anything else that's out there. So, with LifeLit, just even, sorry, that was the old name. With Dably, you're not just saving people money, you're saving them a ton of time. I think even in
Mm-hmm.
solar, at the end of the day, why do people move forward? Because yes, as much as they want to help the earth and they care about the future generations and renewable energy, et cetera, at the end of the day, they're saving a lot of money with solar, right? Between the incentives and rebates, utility, inflation going up. When they look at it, it's a pretty black and white decision. So if you can make people's lives more convenient, a little bit easier, you're going to have a market. And look at
Mm-hmm.
what else is out there, and you'll be very, very successful. So don't do it for the sake of money. Do it because you want to really solve a problem. And first and foremost, it should be affecting you to some instance, right? And I think the more fulfilling part of entrepreneurship, more than the paycheck, is when somebody gives you a genuine thank you that you've had a positive impact on their life, a direct impact on their life as a result of your product or service. I don't think anything is more gratifying for that. It has an effect on your aura and how you walk on this earth. So,
Yeah.
one thousand
No,
percent.
and to that end, right now we're in beta. I don't have these multiple exits as some friends have. But the thing that really kind of makes it all worth it was during our pilot, we had a student come up to us and just thank us for connecting them to some mental health resources. Because right now, one of the things that a lot of people don't realize, 1 in 3 people in college are impacted by suicidal thoughts or have taken some type of self-harm, some actions around self-harm. And to me, whether or not we are able to blow up into this, amazing unicorn that we see ourselves turning into, just the fact that we were able to bring some light into someone's path, to bring them some type of clarity and confidence that they're moving towards, a life that they imagine. That's all that we can ask for. And I think that's one of the big things. Like, it's incredible to have a huge vision, but really just go down and focus on bringing value to people. I think that's something that it's so easy to just get caught up in the glamour of it all and like wanting to have the money and be on these podcasts and speaking engagements. But really, it comes down to just bringing value, and whether you can bring value to one person or 100 million, it really triggers this incredible chain reaction that you won't be able to see, but it'll be out in the world.
1000% has to be your core focus. Well, I want to ask you one last question before I let you go, Lucas. If there is if you have one piece of advice, or I guess one truth for our audience that you really live by, that's been of tremendous help to you and value to you to persevere through all the challenges of your 20s, through all the transitions, through this new endeavor with Dabbly, what would that one truth be?
Mm. Say surround yourself with the right people. Surround yourself with people that you see really growing up with, whose lives you want to learn from. I think you're the average of the people you hang out most with. I think that the friendships that you establish and the people that you have around you have this massive, massive impact on your ability to see the world in a different way, your ability and just desire to take action in your life. And if if you were to take a look at some of the most successful people and those that maybe aren't as successful, and again, not talking just on the financial side, we're talking about the health, fitness, social element. It really does come down to people that they're around. And so my advice is surround yourself with people that you want to learn from, surround yourself with people that you want to grow with, and really things kind of start falling into place. And it has to come from a genuine place. I think that's the other misconception that people have is they feel like they can slide their way into a friendship just for the hope that they'll get something in return. But it doesn't really work like that. People feel energy. It's hard to put into words, but you can't fake anything. And so,
especially in a world of everything.
No.
Especially in a world of everything being fake and superficial and surface level, I think authenticity is, people are craving that more than ever before, and they can read it right off the bat in a sea of fake. So yeah, it's super true.
Yeah, well, and the value Lucas, will come back.
Go ahead. Sorry about that.
No. Just a point of just have that reassurance that whatever value and what you going out of your way, that value will come back if that person you're surrounding yourself with is genuine, should be around. And if it doesn't, you act in a wholehearted way, and you know where things stand. And you don't necessarily drain yourself on that particular friendship if you don't feel that reciprocation. But at the end of the day, things tend to work themselves out when you act what's in your heart.
100%, and just act with genuine interest and, like you said, authenticity. And I think the other thing I want to say on that too is, for every 10 people, even in Los Angeles when I first moved out there, that there was a struggle meeting people that I really connected with. And if I said I want to meet up and hang out, I usually meant it, but the other person would say they would, but they never would ever. They would ghost me, or they wouldn't respond. I ended up building an insane network in Los Angeles and finding a lot of amazing people and friends. And I think ultimately the reason is because I never let the people that didn't reciprocate get in my way or make me lower my standards or become bitter. I just figured, okay, for every 10 people, 9 people might not be somebody that's meant to be in my life. And the funny thing is, once you find a couple of genuine people that have your best interests, that are good people, that reciprocate, now you have access to their network of all the people that they vetted out. So now you start to slowly, you start to leverage all the good people in your life. And now you have access to like 70 different networks of genuine, amazing, intelligent people. So that's usually how it works out. It's the first couple people in a new city that are the hardest to find. And in your 20s, you're not going to be sitting in college classrooms. You might not like your coworkers. So it takes a lot more effort to find those good people that are aligned with your values and your life vision and what you're aspiring to. So very important.
Yes.
Lucas, thank you so much, brother. I really appreciate you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to the audience for joining and listening to this episode today. Lucas, again, is a dear friend of mine. I'm going to include his Instagram, how you can follow him, how you can follow his journey, how you can follow his company, Dabbly, and that journey, because I know you're going to do tremendous things in the world, brother. You have such a big heart. You're one of the most amazing people. I can't say this enough. Lucas is one of those people that if you're sitting in the room with him, you will always leave that interaction better than when you entered that room. I could be in the worst mood, and if I give Lucas a call, he's one of my handful of friends that he has such an amazing effect on me. My family adores him. My wife adores him. I'm so happy for him and his fiance, and I really look forward to the journey ahead. I know we're going to be brothers for the rest of our lives. So again, Lucas, I really appreciate your presence in my life. I appreciate your wisdom and insight today. And we're really looking forward to seeing in the future podcasts and episodes where you take Dabbly and where you are in your personal journey. Thank you for sharing everything you did today. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Adele. Thank you for shining your light.
Appreciate it, brother. Take care.
We're going.